इस पॉडकास्ट को शुरू करने से पहले मेरी आपसे एक छोटी सी रिक्वेस्ट है। सब्सक्राइब बटन और बेल आइकन को क्लिक करिए, क्योंकि आपके ऐसा करते ही आप हमारी कम्युनिटी के पार्ट बन जाते हो, हमारी कम्युनिटी बड़ी हो जाती है और ट्रस्टेबल हो जाती है। ये स्पेशली इम्पॉर्टेंट होता है हमारे गेस्ट के लिए, जिनको हम बहुत मेहनत से अप्रोच करते हैं, और वो जब आते हैं पॉडकास्ट पे तो अपने सालों की इन्फॉर्मेशन आपके साथ शेयर करते हैं, जिसको आप आराम से घर में बैठ के सुन पाते हो। उन गेस्ट के लिए ये इम्पॉर्टेंट होता है कि कौन सुनेगा उनको, कितने लोग सुनेंगे, और ये सवाल का जवाब आप बहुत आसानी से दे सकते हो सब्सक्राइब करके। आपको सिर्फ इतना करना है, बाकी हम देख लेंगे। तो आइए चलते हैं, देखते हैं ये पॉडकास्ट।
If I'm a Muslim, then Islam is my identity. If I'm a Hindu, then this is mine. Or if I'm a Muslim, then Ganpati is my thing.
Yeah.
But I love the identity that these people have created for me. I mean, to me, that is what I am. I want the world to be a better place by the time I leave it, not a worse place. And so I have to fight. I have to rebel. If you ask me what's your political ideology, I'd say anarchism. I mean, anarchism doesn't believe in authority. Anarchism doesn't believe that human beings are innately bad and that they need to be governed by laws and rules.
And you could erase one thing out of current India. What would that be?
We should protect artists by not defining their role, by giving him the margin he defines for himself, for his creativity.
You know, the artist is a figure in society who can speak the voice of many people. Why does art become so important? Otherwise, art exists on the sidelines of society.
This podcast is with Orijit Sen, the distinguished artist, a very fine graphic artist. He is absolutely vocal about his own political beliefs, his own social beliefs, and he has lived a life which many call a life of a rebel. But I personally, having had this conversation, salute him for his bravery, for his thought process, and for his commitment to the nation and to the younger generation. I hope you love it. So if there is this one image, visual that you have to draw to represent the modern India in the best possible manner, what would that look like?
In the best possible manner.
I love that pointing. Yes, in the best possible, but your best possible, not the world's.
Well, I mean, my images are usually not singular things. I mean, they are sometimes, but there are always like various elements at play. For me, I think it would certainly involve something to do with the many kinds of language, food, and culture, not religion, which this country has. I mean, that richness to me represents the best of India. And that is, I think, a legacy that we have all inherited. What's happening to you is a different matter. But to me, that is the diversity. I mean, of course, it sounds like a cliche, the diversity of India, but it truly is in terms of these things, in terms of our lived cultures and our kind of heritage, which is an expression of those different cultures over time. That if I were to create an image, I would try to bring in reference to all of this.
The language, culture, food.
Yeah.
And what is it, if you had that magical pen and you could erase one thing out of current India, what would that be?
Castism. I think that is the root of a lot of problems that we have in India. Literally, when I thought about it, you can trace literally every problem in this country back to caste. I think that has been a thing that has held us back, that has stopped us from achieving our potential as a country and as a culture. It strikes me every time, even I travel out of India, it strikes me. Because it becomes such a default setting in the way you perceive the country that you kind of, I guess, to live in India, you have to sort of blind yourself to certain things. Otherwise, you can't kind of carry on.
Yeah.
And caste is one such thing, because I went to Vietnam. I could see the difference between, I mean, there are many things that are like, I mean, what really endeared me to Vietnam, there is something about it, about the culture, about the people, about diversity, which is like ours.
Yeah.
I felt a kind of kinship. But what I see a big difference is that sense of equality and that egalitarian thing in society. It's such a, let's say, what would we call intangible thing, quality that you only recognize it when you see it somewhere else, and then you realize that it's missing here. Ours is a very stratified, divided, socially stratified society. And that's the worst thing. I just want to erase that part. I think that would affect every aspect of Indian life.
True. And is it like all your lived years, is it getting worse or is it improving with education, with young people in it?
So I would say that when I was young, I was very optimistic about India. But that's because my default setting was to not look at certain things or not be troubled by certain things. And I saw the good things and I saw the positive things, and I felt I was definitely a much more hopeful person in the 1980s when I was at NID or afterwards. I was born in 1962. That was like literally 15 years after we became independent.
Yeah.
So there was a spirit of like, we have become free. We can now build a future that we want.
Yeah.
So that spirit was still there in the air, in my parents, in people I knew.
Yeah. Let's recreate life.
Yeah. So there was overall kind of a positivity.
Yeah.
Which I've seen it erode.
Fade away.
I've seen people become cynical. As I learned more, as I grew older, as I came to understand more, I realized that we can't just look at one aspect of it. So you asked me whether things have gotten better or worse. It's hard to say one. It's not a better or worse.
So
some things have gotten better. Some things have gotten worse. But some of the critical things, like caste, I mean, there is
caste specifically.
There is no. It's not gotten better even an inch. And it's only now, interestingly, with the kind of let's say Hindu majoritarianism that we are seeing in this country now, all these aspects of Hindu culture, including caste, have been allowed to be given more free expression. Now we suddenly, we were brought up to believe that there's no caste.
Yeah.
But now I realize that it's just that our eyes were hidden from it. Some people, privileged people, could afford to, or rather, my parents and all, they never ever put that idea of caste. And whatever we studied in school and everything, we felt that it must be something of the past order. It's really crazy to know now. I mean, this has been more in your face now since the Modi government has come in, and where Hindutva is the kind of focus and the ideology. And you can see the attacks on Dalits. And you realize that this has always been the case. It's been, it's certainly not getting better.
New.
Yeah, nothing new, and it's not getting better either. And now even people who earlier would probably not speak about these things too much are now feel free to express them openly.
That's the difference. Yeah. So
in a way, you could say it's actually worse, because earlier people maybe felt they needed to hide some things. Now they don't need to hide. So
you feel stronger.
Yeah.
If you're Hindu.
No, yeah,
you
exactly.
feel privileged, more privileged. And that's a very dangerous space to be in.
Yes.
To feel privileged because of the caste that you're born.
Yeah.
You're such an acclaimed artist. I've always wondered that artists have a power. This is very different from everybody else. The power to visualize, probably also see the future in a much more sharper sense than anybody else. And then more so about articulating an opinion.
Yeah.
I personally feel so. What is your opinion?
Well, not all artists will agree with me. The artist is a figure in society, the only figure perhaps, who can speak and articulate the voice of many people. an artist doesn't have any vested interest. Everybody else is either you're working for a corporation, so you have to follow what the corporation wants. You're working for the government, you have to follow what the government wants. Somebody's telling them, that this is okay, but this is not okay. Typically, an artist is an independent human being who has the power to communicate and reach out. I feel that the artist is necessary for an artist not just to be self-indulgent about it, but to make their voice the voice of the people whose voice will not be heard or will not be made visible, because only they can do it.
Is artist capable enough to think and express enough that the policymakers should make a note of it? Or it's fair to say that artists can probably create literary and visual magic, but it may not really have the data and the research and the deeper understanding that actually a policymaker needs.
What the artist does is brings about a kind of change that is not something that brings in overnight change. The artist plants seeds of change in people's minds. And in the longer run, that is what defines what happens later. Because, yes, there are all these practical, let's say, and technical or scientific reasons to do things. But there is a bigger question. The bigger question is, why should these things be done?
Why should these things
be done? For what purpose? First, you imagine a different, it's like Gandhi or Nehru or others, imagine that kind of India. And then all the rest of it comes from there. But it has to first come in the imagination of people. And therefore, the artist is the one who plants that imagination into the heads. Those same people who may then become the president of the country. You can influence even the president of the country because as an artist, you fired the president's imagination. So what the artist is doing is not making technical changes. The artist is changing people's minds and hearts. And from that, then, of course, other kinds of change will come.
Give me some examples of artists that have done that anywhere in the world that you have studied.
It's hard to kind of put it into that kind of specific example. But I would say, let's say, why does art become so important? Otherwise, art exists on the sidelines of society in our world. They are in a gallery somewhere, which is a sort of sterile white space or whatever space, and most of the public in the world around don't know about it. They don't care about it. Okay, and a few sort of cognizant people go into those galleries and enjoy it, and it's a little inner discussion between this sort of
this tight community.
Yeah, that's how art survives in society normally.
Yeah.
But when you have like people really rise up because they can't stand the oppression anymore, like let's say in Shaahen Bagh, people gathered with a voice to oppose the government. Thousands, lakhs of people all over the country stood up in protest. The walls of Shaahen Bagh were covered with art. Which the government had to spend time and money later to erase. Why does art come into the forefront when the most important things that matter to people, in those times and places when art becomes central to society? Art is no longer something that people are going into galleries to. People need art.
Yeah.
They need music. They need literature.
That's the time it comes up.
Yes.
And takes the foreground.
To me, that is a sign at how fundamental art is to the deepest aspirations of people.
Yeah.
And that's why the government finds it so important to obliterate that as soon as they can.
Advice. Yeah.
Because if it's there, that will keep on reminding people of what they feel. So then they should erase it, whitewash it. Yeah. Remove it from that space. And then art can be tolerated inside this little
gallery
conditioned space which doesn't impact the rest of the society around. So, and I've seen that in Palestine also. There are no galleries in Palestine anyway, but there are so many artists who create such beautiful works on the broken down buildings that the Israelis have bombed. They paint them. And Palestine is like a Shaahen Bagh situation permanently.
Yeah.
And people are constantly, struggling and protesting and trying to fight back. And so they need the art around them all the time. And in fact, I remember standing, there's a city called Jenin where I spent some time. And in some 10, 15 years ago, there was an Israeli attack on that city and they bombed, like they're doing in Gaza right now, but this is for time, in 2010 or so. And a lot of young people died, and on a particular street where there were cars and vehicles parked, and they bombed it, and all those cars and vehicles, of course, got smashed. One young artist from that neighborhood, he collected all the pieces of metal scraps and bits and wheels and whatever, all the broken down stuff. And he constructed a beautiful, huge horse sculpture out of it, out of those broken down things. And that horse sculpture becomes an important point for all the people in Jenin. Whenever they have to gather for a protest or for something, or even a celebration or a photo op, or if some foreigners come there, I was led there and they took photos with me in front of that. So art has the power to become symbolic of people's most deepest aspirations. So that's how art changes society.
And where did you find your voice? Like, were you going back into your childhood and your younger age? Were you always who had a voice and an urge to put out your voice? Or is that something that you've developed?
Yeah, I think if I really look back, it was maybe my teenage years that I started to become rebellious about certain things. There was a phase when my aunt came from the US and I'd never seen oil paints in my life. We only used to have those watercolor.
Yeah.
And I used to be frustrated because I couldn't always get that feel that I wanted. My parents would, this is all pre-internet time, right? So they would buy things like some encyclopedias for us to read and learn more about the world.
Yeah.
And seeing my interest in drawing and all that, my mom would sometimes buy me these great artists' books. I mean, whatever they could afford. They were just, my father was a government servant, so middle class life. So I would see a painting by Rembrandt and I said, man, how the hell does this guy paint like this? How does he create this kind of thing? And I try and it won't work. And then my aunt came from the USA and one day, and she was spending her holidays with us. And she had this oil painting set. And her idea was that she's going to spend a month in India with us and she would just, practice her painting. But she didn't, because she had met her sister after, decades. So they had so much to catch up on. They spent all the time just chatting. But I was every day like, okay, when is she going to paint that? Looking for that. I'd look at the box, I'd look at the paints. She knew that I was really waiting. I'm very curious to know what this is all about, because I could smell it. It smells completely different from watercolor.
Yeah.
So after some time, I think she figured she's not going to be able to do anything with the paints. So she said, you know what? You make a nice portrait of me, and if I like it, I'll give you my paints. And I was like, so of course, I immediately got around to making the best possible portrait of her, which she liked, or at least she said she liked. And she gave me the paints. So at some point, like I was saying earlier to you, that I was academically good. I was to come in the first 3-4 ranks in class and all that. So it was assumed I would be a doctor or whatever. But then I started saying, no, why do I want? I don't want to be an artist. I mean, I want to be an artist because I'd gotten deeply into it. By then I was also winning a lot of all these inter-school painting competitions. I had like a stack of, my ma actually saved them. Like a huge stack of certificates and medals and all that. So they were like, you're good.
So she was appreciative of.
No, they were always appreciative, especially my mom. And she tried within her limited economic means. She would try to support it. If I needed money for something, she'd help me buy. I mean, so that My aunt's
Like, I mean, she was open to your
no, absolutely.
exposure to art.
Yeah, she didn't want me to become an artist, but she supported my
Become a doctor, but love art.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she kept saying, "Oh, it's a very good hobby. You must not stop it, but please first become a doctor." So and also they had, in that sense, because to win all those competitions, they also had think that okay, you are talented. You obviously have that talent there. But that idea was not a thing that you can become an artist. That's like the worst thing, especially in those days. So it was only my art teacher in school who I have to thank for a lot of stuff. He was a big supporter quietly from the back. So he said, "You don't let anyone. You can be a great artist." So he was the one voice who was sort of pushing me a bit. I remember telling one day, I found out about some article somewhere about Picasso and how much his painting was selling for and all that stuff. So I told my dad, "Look, I'm an artist, make money."
Yeah.
I said, "But you're not Picasso."
Parents.
Strange that remark, which is a casual remark he made, but it has stayed with me all these years. Maybe it goaded me to be even more like I will be Picasso.
Yeah. I mean, it was clear that there is only one Picasso. Every artist is not Picasso.
Yeah. Anyway, so all of that, I think finally it was a big struggle to become an artist, but I did. Or rather, first my mom, finally when they realized that I'm completely stuck on it, and the only way to convince them was that I started actually, although I was good in school with my studies, I started actually doing badly. Purposely, because I knew if I keep doing good,
purposely.
Yeah. So I wouldn't study. They would want to see what, and the day of the exam, like what's the time. I fudged it. I said, on the day I have maths, I said I have geography. And then, of course, I didn't study that last minute maths or anything, and then I didn't do well. So I deliberately started performing badly, and only then they started to accept that, okay. So my dad was like, "Okay, fine, whatever, but you better study so you can at least finish your school with some decent marks." Because they will judge you, even NID or whoever will judge you. And NID was an unknown place, nobody knew about NID or design for that matter. So, but you will not get in if you have bad marks. So I decided I'm going to try it anyway. So somehow, so he thought I was being so adamant that he thought, okay, anyway, he doesn't even have his 12th certificate and all that. So he won't get in. But just because he's being so adamant, so no point opposing. So he's pay whatever 10 rupees, 15 rupees it was to get the form. Then I filled it in myself. I sent it. And to my surprise, I got a call. Or rather, not so much to my surprise as to my dad's surprise for the interview and also.
To his shock.
Yeah, to his shock. He said, "But they don't know that you haven't even passed school." I said, "I'll go there and tell them. Let me go. At least they've called me." So he said, "Oh." So I went. They asked us to bring any previous work we've done. So showing them, and I used to do so much painting. So I had oil paintings. I had all kinds of stuff. So I remember it was Vikas who was the head of that selection thing at that point. And then Shailendra, I don't know if you know Shailendra, he's passed away. Anyway, so he was one of the faculty. He asked for my papers, documents, 12th standard, this, that. So that was the moment of reckoning. So I said, actually, I don't have. I'm still in class 11. So everybody was like, silence. Like suddenly, what the hell is happened here? And suddenly, in the brief silence, and then Vikas just started laughing. And he had that laugh on him. He just laughed. And then everybody relaxed and the whole atmosphere kind of. So he said something to me like, "I like your spirit," or something he said. He said, "But probably you'll have to come back next year." So I said, no, I can't. I can't go back one more year to school. I'm dying over there. I mean, I will learn nothing. Let's say if I spend the 1 year in NID, I would learn so much. Whatever, they smiled. So I thought, okay, that's it. Now I have to go back. And I had to go back to Hyderabad, and then the school year was beginning. And I was desperately trying to grow my hair long. Every holiday, I tried to grow it as long as possible.
Why?
I wanted long hair.
Okay.
But the moment I had to go to school, I had to cut my hair.
Yeah.
So, first day of school, I went back after getting a haircut. And then in the evening, I come home and my mom's waiting outside as I used to cycle. As I'm cycling, I see she's waiting outside with a big smile on her face. And she's waving this telegram. And so despite all of this, somewhere secretly, she probably still wanted me to go. And so the telegram came that day, the first day of my school, that I was selected. So she was obviously really thrilled, and she knew I would be thrilled. So she was standing.
So they took you in the 11th standard exceptionally.
And even though that was that situation, my mom, the first thing I realized when I saw the telegram, it was like that I'd be selected. My first thought I still remember was, shit, I just cut my hair yesterday.
That look mattered.
Because then John Lennon was my biggest hero, and I wanted to have hair like him.
That's where it is coming.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's how it went. So that's how, let's say, all my those years of being rebellious and doing all that stuff and kind of getting my way around with my parents, but also more so with my teachers and others, and also seeing through some of the strategies that authorities. I mean, I'm not blaming any individual, but when you're in a position of authority and you are representing the system, you do use fair means and foul because you are following the system. You may personally not believe in something or whatever, but
you're supposed to.
You do what you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And so some of those learnings come from then. My 2-3 years in high school where I was rebellious and I understood the nature of authority and how authority works, and the carrot and stick thing that they use, and the kind of, boys' school, so we used to get punished a lot also, like corporal punishment. The use of that kind of violence against kids. Surprisingly, as a kid, you can become quite politicized if you don't happen to be on the good boy side of the picture. So I think my rebellion started then, or not rebellion, but my distrust of authority and of authoritarian systems more than individuals. I mean, I didn't hate individual teachers, but I hated the way the teachers dealt with us. Dealt with us when we were not obedient. And I hated the way that they rewarded and loved the ones who were obedient.
Were following them.
So I just from there.
And what did you say to yourself in those moments?
Which moments?
When you realize that these are authority guys and they're just after me because I'm not following what they're saying.
It just, every time I would be punished, it would just further strengthen my resolve. To do what I was doing and not listen to them, or not be obedient, or not follow the rules that they lay down, and to listen to my own heart to know what is right and wrong. I didn't want to do things which I felt were wrong by my own standards. I think that is also kind of an important aspect of being a rebel or whatever, is to have your own values and to be very true to them.
What you understood about authority and authority system, what was it? What was the interpretation?
I mean, to me, I understood that people who are supposedly your elders, or people who are doing things for your own good, they say, who claim a position of higher moral, not just physical authority, that they have money, they have power, they have strength, whatever, but that they are morally superior and they are trying to, convey. I saw through that. I saw that moral superiority has nothing to do with authority. And as kids, we have that gets conflicted in our heads. That our parents are right, our elders are right, our teachers are right. We are wrong because we don't know. But I think that is, I rejected that idea, and I still reject it. I think a kid can be much righter than, and very often are. The kid starts to learn from a young age, or is taught from a young age, that this is the way it is, that this is how it should be, that this is right. So for me, that posturing of being morally right, while actually being morally completely wrong, is what I saw through and I, like I'm saying, I don't blame it on individuals. I blame it on an authoritarian system, which exists till today. I mean, at heart, if you ask me what's your political ideology, I'd say anarchism. I mean, anarchism doesn't believe in authority. Anarchism doesn't believe that human beings are innately bad and that they need to be governed by laws and rules. Anarchism says that human beings are innately cooperative people who will, you let everyone be, everyone will, with minimal rules and things, people will cooperate with each other for everybody's common good.
Yeah.
That is, so it's a fundamental difference the way you look at human beings.
Yeah.
All of the rest of it is essentially saying human beings have to be controlled. Otherwise, society will fall in. And they use the word anarchy to mean that chaos. But actually, anarchy is not that. Anarchy means a peaceful community and communal way of coexistence and governing society in societies, right? I mean, with as little rules and things as possible, and all rules and regulations which are commonly accepted as for the common good. Right. So that is something essentially innate, and I believe that it's innate to us as humans, but we lose it as we go along and we get corrupted.
Yeah.
And so if you're talking about ideal situation, I mean, as an artist, I'm very concerned with ideals. I mean, I know the ideal is not here and it may not even come here. I don't know, ever, maybe. But that doesn't mean we don't keep working towards it, because things only get better when you believe that we have to go in that direction. And you may never reach there, but your journey has to go in that direction. So it's like, let's say, I mean, people say, oh, communism is this, whatever. But, we all, communist or socialist or capitalist or whatever we are, we believe that we should have an 8-day work day, 5 to 6 days a week of work, and 2 days of holiday. This is not created by nature. This is created by communists fighting to get in the 19th century in industrial societies, fighting to get these rights. So if you just say that, no, this is how it is, and just accept that, then
end of the story.
That's the end of the story. But people fight. I mean, so they have a vision of something which is ideal and good, but they may get only 1% of that, but even that 1% is valuable. You still have to be guided by that vision of that 100%. Otherwise, you won't get even the 1%.
Yeah.
So
you don't even know what you're going for.
Yeah.
And then there are no steps to follow. Then you're just living with what you're living with.
Yeah.
So like as an artist, as a father, as a responsible citizen, paying your taxes, doing your thing, doing all the right thing. Today you're successful. The world knows you. But when you were rebelling to be an artist, let's put that in any other situation where as a young person, you don't have an agreement, a societal agreement of something that you want to do, where there's a gender-based decision, a career to pursue, a marriage to do, or anything that a young person goes through. It really means a lot to them, but there's no agreement. Fast forward few years down the line, who knows what the result is going to be. But when you're established and the world knows you, do you regret any of these decisions that you're taking? Now today you're successful, so everything is okay. Everything is under that, right? Like it all looks, you've done everything perfect. But let's be honest. Back then, when you were friends with a guy who was not really accepted in the society, or the rebel that you took, and it could have gone any other way, or many other things that I don't even know. Are there regrets? And I not asking about the specific regret, but did you realize that there were decisions that could have gone really, really wrong for you?
Yeah. When I walked out of NID, right, I had left school without friends. I left NID also in my final year. I knew that I had cut off my opportunities for doing, let's say, further studies or going abroad. Because I was only 10th standard pass.
No degrees.
In fact, the first time I traveled abroad on a project, the Indian government gave me a passport which had the stamp of immigration check required. They still have that, where if a person doesn't have basic educational qualification, then the Indian government is telling whichever other country government that you better check the immigration status of this guy, because we don't know what he's doing. We don't guarantee.
This person hasn't done graduation. Yeah. We don't know this. Yeah.
I'm aware in theory that there were a lot of opportunities which I lost by not doing certain things, by taking certain kind of stance, by not bothering to compete with NID after I felt that I had learned what I had to learn from NID. And they were imposing some conditions for me. And I said I want to accept those conditions, and I left. Mainly because I started working with Amar on a project in Russia. And Amar wanted me to sort of join the team that we were going to Russia. And at that time, I was supposed to do my diploma project. So they said, no, look, you can't go on this project because you're not allowed to do a project outside of NID, which is a result of something else at NID. And they had made that rule for me. That
for you?
Okay. That I have to only work within NID because I can't be trusted to do anything outside NID. Which is a result of I once went away with a video and went and made a film of somewhere without their permission. That means here we can work.
Okay.
So after that, we made this thing.
You can't be out of NID. Yeah.
So then it became like either I go to, now I'll do my diploma. So either I go to Russia to do it. I mean,
on that project.
Go with the Amar on the Russian project, or I sit here and do my diploma. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to Russia. So like I'm saying, I mean, those decisions were not necessarily very thought through. They're based on like, I mean, and that is coming from maybe my rebellious thing, like I'll do what I want and I know what's good for me and I don't need your approval to do what I have to. So somebody else in my position will probably have valued that
opinion or that way of life.
No, I'm saying they would have valued that certificate from NID more and said, no, I can't do a lot of things in life if I don't have this.
Sure.
And then they would have said, okay, let me sacrifice this Russia thing for...
Let me complete. I've put in so many years to it. Yeah.
But I didn't. So now I don't regret it. Only in theory, because I know in theory, maybe my life would have been different. Had I done that, maybe I would have gotten scholarships to study further abroad.
Yeah.
I knew my work was good. I knew that I would probably get admissions and even scholarships. So I forsook all that on the basis of that thing. Now I can look back and say, I should have my life.
But who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I don't regret it.
You didn't take that route, so you don't even know what would have happened with that.
That's all the ifs and buts. Maybe.
It's an assumption.
Yeah.
Exactly. What if it would have been a wasteful 1 year and that certificate didn't make any sense?
Yeah. So that way. Otherwise, I don't, in a professional or a larger social political way, I don't think I have regrets and I have to think about it. I have some regrets at a personal level. Like, let's say, I mean, which, like I'm saying, I mean, this is, many people would have, everybody has regrets in some level.
Yeah.
For me, I feel bad that I never gave enough time and attention to my parents, especially my mother. She was an amazing person, like everybody feels about their mother, so I'm going to repeat that. But she did sacrifice a lot for us, for me. And like I was saying earlier, memory, that she deeply supported us, even though I was doing something she didn't want me to.
That's a huge one.
Mm.
That's a big one on her part to go beyond her own comfort.
Yeah. And then when I was in NID, I was just waiting to get out of home and middle class life. I had no. The holidays came. Most of the others were like, oh, see, they won't go home. I was like, I want to go home. I trying to figure out something somewhere else. And often some project or something or the other would happen, and I would choose to go there instead of going. So I know that they must have, and now as a parent, I can feel that they must have really sort of wanted me back. But so I tended to take them for granted. I mean, I have regrets about some of those choices.
Like that time, let's say you as a child, you were rebelling because you couldn't do what you really wanted to do and you wanted to really push that through. Why now?
I mean, I'm not rebelling in the same way, but I'm rebelling against society at large. That time it was more about my own place in society and finding my path. But I also realized that rebellion is a way of life. If you give up on that, at least for me, if I give up on my critical rebelliousness about where things are in this world, I would become a middle of the road person. Just I would be retired by now and maybe gardening somewhere or whatever. Yeah. So to me, rebellion is an energy. Rebellion is a strong energy. You direct it at the things that matter. At that time in my youth, it was about my own way of life and my path and my search. Now it's about society around me and the injustice that I see every day. I do it because even in a personal level, I mean, I want the world to be a better place by the time I leave it, not a worse place. And so I have to fight. I have to rebel. I can say that I want Paki, my daughter, to grow up in a better world, not a worse world. I mean, the people who've inspired me over from my youth to now, they all worked towards creating a space in which I could grow and thrive. No? So to me, they gave something, and it is our responsibility to not only preserve it, but also to enlarge that, what they create. No? So all the heroes that I've had in my life.
And who are they?
So many painters, artists, like I already mentioned people like Dylan and John Lennon were so important for me at the time. I would not be what I am if I hadn't been listening to their music at that time and been inspired by it, Or artists like Modigliani, or I mean, for a while I was just obsessed with Modigliani when I was in it. I used to try to draw like him, paint like him. I used to kind of uh, look deeply into his work to see what are the conflicts that he was sort of trying to address through his work. Later on, Robert Crumb, the American comics guy who changed the whole comic scene in America. And then much later, I met him. He came to India in 2012 or something. I didn't believe, I'd heard that Comic Con was happening there and that he was coming. So I didn't believe it. So anyway, they had called me to give some prize to him. So I went there and we were all sitting in the front row and I looked this way, there was Robert Crumb sitting down, like I almost fell over. So
such a fan moment.
Yeah. And it was, I'd kind of forgotten about because it was a part of my life and I used to even draw like him sometimes. And but the moment I met him again after so many years, it just went back.
Came back.
Yeah, that thing. And then I caught up with him and I spoke to him and I talked about how I make comics and like that. And he was very interested. And then I think he just got very interested and he was supposed to go. I mean, they had the Comic Con there, organized a weekend for him in Jaipur. Probably doing the tourist thing. So he said, oh, fuck that shit. I said, come to my studio. And he came. And we spent a day looking at his work, my work, talking about comics, talking about things that kind of moved him to do what he did. And it was amazing.
Wow. Wow. To actually have him sit
Yeah.
and talk.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So like that. So, so many people. It's not like one person. I'm very influenced by writers like Franz Fanon, like Paulo Freire, the Brazilian
Huh.
music writings, and they surely live within me. Their words, their thoughts, their ideas.
You know this because you've followed their life journey, and that's why?
Yeah. And also, like I'm saying, their words influence me so deeply to think about things in a certain way that I'm sure uh, I would not be what I am if it wasn't for this. So for me, all these people are the heritage that my
Collectively.
heritage, yeah, collective heritage. And so to me, I don't have a strong kind of identity-based thing that maybe a certain kind of person would consider their culture, their religion, their gods, their whatever to be the identity that forms them. Sadly, that's why people also fight for those identities.
Yeah.
Because that's them.
Yeah.
If I'm a Muslim, then Islam is my identity. If I'm a Hindu, then Islam. Or if I'm a Maharashtrian, then that part of Maharashtra, that god, what a Ganpati is my thing.
Yeah.
To me, all these things don't matter. I did never grew up in Bengal. I don't have a strong Bangla identity. I love it. I love the language. When I do go, I enjoy it. But it's not my identity. If someone tells me, what are you? I don't say I'm Bengali. Or even Indian. I don't really care. But I love the identity that these people have created for me. To me, that is what I am. And it's a large number of people. It's not just one or two.
But that's also because you have allowed yourself to be inspired, I feel.
Yeah. Because I think we all seek inspiration. And if you keep having that thirst for inspiration or urge to seek that, you will have it all your life. I think a lot of people kind of sort of peter out.
Block it out at some point. I'm done. I'm done with my quota for inspiration. Yeah. No, that's why. Because for somebody like you could actually be called in the general sense a righteous man. Somebody has an opinion and thinks it's right. But I guess a righteous man will never go looking around for inspiration or even have a heart open to let somebody come in. Right? Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This was deeply personal, honestly. Thank you for taking out time. But I've been very, very inspired just by the fact that you say, and I absolutely relate to everything that you say. But I can't say. I have not been able to, not that I've not out of fear or anything, but just like didn't have those words, to be putting out there. So when I read you, it's like, so thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Thank you for so much time.
And your questions were very thoughtful. They made me articulate stuff that, I don't articulate every day. Or they made me think about something that I already think about, but in a different way.
I'm glad. Wow, that's so good. Thank you. This podcast has not really left as much mark as I experienced in my real conversation with Orijit. And that is because he is so layered, he's so deep, he has thought and lived so much that it's actually not possible to encompass so much of his journey into a quick conversation. But I promise, we will keep bringing his thoughts back to you again. But let's summarize. So what stays with me at the end of this entire conversation is the fact that he says that if he stops putting out his opinion out there, then he'll feel retired. उनको ऐसा लगेगा अगर वो बोलना बंद कर देंगे तो उनको ऐसा लगेगा कि अब बस रिटायरमेंट का टाइम आ गया, कहीं जाके गार्डनिंग कर लो. और ऐसे वो है नहीं, ऐसा उनका सिस्टम ही नहीं है. So putting his voice forward is a way of life for him, and I salute him for that. He also says that putting your point forward or being a rebel is a great energy, but ये great energy को हमें right तरीके से use करना चाहिए. अब राइट और रॉन्ग तो सब्जेक्टिव है, आई एग्री, जो कोई भी जो पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू रखना चाहता है उसके हिसाब से वो राइट होता है. बट इफ़ यू रिमेंबर ही ऑल्सो सेड दैट इफ समथिंग इज जस्ट योर ओपिनियन then it may or may not be right. But if it is for the larger good, if it serves other people, if you can be very sure कि ये खाली आप अपने vested interest के लिए नहीं, but एक larger good के लिए कर रहे हो, then there's a fair chance that this is a right decision. So then उसके बाद कोई rebel बोले, कुछ भी बोले, it's fine. Put your point forward. And hats off to him. इतनी अच्छी ज़िंदगी जी है उन्होंने, अपने टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन पे ज़िंदगी जी है. उसके बाद भी he is not settling down in a retired manner. He is fighting through his art. He is fighting in very subtle ways. But इसलिए कि बाकी हम सब या और जो younger लोग हैं, they live in a better India. So that was Orijit Sen. This conversation, I promise, will continue with him. And while you're at this topic, I'll recommend that one of a previous podcast of advocate Sudhanshu Pandey, वो पक्का देखिएगा, क्योंकि जिस तरह से अरिजीत ने बात करी कि सिस्टम में प्रॉब्लम है. सो सिस्टम में एक पार्ट सिस्टम पॉलिटिकल होता है, दूसरा लीगल भी होता है. सो सुधांशु जी हु इज़ अ लॉयर टॉक्स अबाउट कि हाँ है, लॉ में प्रॉब्लम है, लीगल सिस्टम में प्रॉब्लम है, ही अग्रीज. बट वो क्यों है और आज के टाइम में भी क्यों है, इसको उन्होंने बहुत क्लियरली बताया. सो यू मस्ट लिसन टू दैट. एंड नेक्स्ट पॉडकास्ट विच इज़ कमिंग अप नाउ इज़ अ मस्ट लिसन, क्योंकि आपने अरिजीत सेन का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू सुना है. दैट इज़ ऑफ हिमांशु जैन. He is a right-wing activist. He's a die-hard fan of the current government. और उन्होंने अपना point of view रखा है कि उनको क्यों इस ideology में इतना faith है. उनकी starting कहाँ से हुई थी और इतने समय बीत जाने के बाद में भी इतनी कश्मकश है हमारे देश में. But why he is on this side of the wing? So I think हम सबको एक informed citizen होना एक basic है. So these two podcasts, I promise, will help you think. So I hope you enjoy both of them and you develop your own point of view. पक्का share करना भूलना नहीं, and keep enjoying floating with the fish. Share it with somebody that matters to you.